So Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, is dead, and whatever he is now is something more than that, because yes, he is back alive, but he has entirely new powers and an entirely new person providing them for him, and we finally get to see who exactly that is. And yeah, it's very different than Xiao Lao, the thing that gave him the Iron Fist powers beforehand. So this new Ghost Fist is still on the run, fighting against all of these possessed humans who is trying to stop him. Even at one point, a bunch of motorcycle guys using chains to wrap around his neck, going to decapitate him until he's able to use one of his new abilities to literally phase out of it, which by the way is just incredibly overpowered. And even against Daredevil before, he was just able to phase out of his attacks, which is just super overpowered. Like, how do you even fight against that if you can't phase as well or have any certain hacks to stop that? Regardless, as he continues to fight, we see his boss, or the person giving him new powers, the person who he's an avatar of, talking and narrating everything here as he goes on to say, "Danny Rand, Ghost Fist, my unrelenting force of vengeance. Many centuries ago, I was too deceived, severed into pieces. Then the loving grace of my wife resurrected me. It's why I offer you the same gift, so you may as well deliver your own brand of retribution against a system built on lies. They thought you dead, but your return is only just, and your enemies should fear you," because his enemies in this case being the original Iron Fist, who for whatever reason we still don't know why he is evil or what his overarching plan is, but we do find out a couple of things. One, that every bit of Xiao Lao's chi, the powers before that made him the Iron Fist, the immortal Iron Fist, has been siphoned off and given to him, so he is as strong as ever. And secondly, he is not alone. He doesn't just have the possessed army of normal civilians and people that he has sent after Danny. No, he has an entire team of elite warriors as well. The other immortal weapons who at one point were also as powerful as Danny. Quan Yaozu, who technically really isn't the first Iron Fist, but one of the first anyway, he does at the very least go to make some things very clear and why he wants Danny specifically gone and banished forever. As he goes on to tell the other elite warriors to bring Danny to him at his dying last breath. "I want him to see everything I've taken away from him, his life, his wealth, his power. There's nothing left for him to return to this world." So yes, a very personal vendetta against Danny Rand, the previous Iron Fist, now Ghost Fist specifically. Speaking of Danny Rand, meanwhile, he's just in Central Park just destroying everybody because these normal civilians are possessed by these like demonic entities, essentially spirits. To the outside person, it looks like he's just beating up random cops, random jogging ladies and such. Yet of course, he is almost exorcising them using his newfound power. And up to this point, no matter who has stood in his way, he has kind of just, overpowered them very easily. From of course the civilians and normal people being possessed to even other heroes such as Spider-Man and Daredevil. Yet here for the first time we see him, not being able to take out an enemy as easily as he can. As just then he is punched into the concrete, cracking it as Fat Cobra, one who is, very not the same and also possessed, arrives to take on this new Ghost Fist. Now again, I know I said before his phasing or being able to go ghost, much like his name, the Ghost Fist, is very overpowered because there's nothing you can do against it. That's still true, yes, but at the same time it does have a very specific weakness, as while he is intangible, of course he can't hit back. With Fat Cobra, who was possessed by a Wraithlin, understands the same thing, that once he goes intangible, that he cannot fight and attack and be a ghost at the same time, taking advantage of said fact. And this is bad for Danny for a couple of reasons. One, of course, Fat Cobra is a very competent fighter on his own. He was another defender of a city just like Iron Fist was. And secondly, time is of the essence. His literal life force is draining every time he activates his powers or use any sort of abilities. So the more he spends fighting here, the more he isn't going to be able to stop Quan Yaozu from, destroying Danny's life. And he will be sent back to the underworld where he will be there forever, essentially. But obviously the biggest question that you're probably wondering here is, how did he go from being dead and killed and going to the underworld to now being above, alive again with an incredibly powerful new set of abilities? And that's the answer we finally get here, as once we move back over into the underworld, of course, Orison Randall, the previous Iron Fist before Danny Rand, who is guiding him here and teaching him through it all, he leads him directly to Osiris, the king of the underworld, or at the very least in the Egyptian sense, which if anything, Osiris here was expecting Danny Rand because he is yet to be here to be judged in the Hall of Truth. But before any judging goes around and he is approved or denied, Danny goes on to try and verbally state his case, going on to say that his death was met by an outside interference, because his death, along with many other Iron Fists of the past before him, they are a part of a centuries old scheme to siphon all of their chi, their power, to give to Quan Yaozu to empower, the false Iron Fist, if you want to call him that. And we even find out that Osiris knows all of this, that Quan Yaozu himself was the false Death Lord of the 8th city. Now, in Marvel, there are a bunch of hidden away mystical cities that each of the immortal weapons come from. And Danny Rand here, or the Iron Fist, and he was the protector for a time of Kunlun, which are a part of the same 7 cities. Though, like Osiris says, there is an 8th city. Though this one is different. There's no overall people or kingdom to protect. But no, the entire thing was used as a prison, essentially, putting the worst of the worst, the bad bad guys, any other trash or forbidden weapons that the other 7 cities didn't want. But back in the present here, Danny Rand simply just wants to end the cycle before his successors, the new Iron Fist and beyond him, meet the same fate. So Osiris here says, yes, sure, that is a very noble effort and good plan, but we need to see if you're even worthy to do so, as he plunges his fist through his chest to check his soul. Which, if you know Danny Rand, afterwards the obvious conclusion rings out that yes, Danny Rand's path on Earth and everything that he has done so far was a good path, and his intentions have been pure. He was a defender of justice. Unlike the other Iron Fist before Danny, Randall here, he was a very reckless man who lived a life of overindulgence. So likewise, he would have never been worthy of the same path that Danny is on now. But Osiris continues to go on and say, I cannot risk abandoning my kingdom to walk among the living to help you take on Quinn Yaozu and whatever have you, but I can provide you with power. In the same fashion, if Khonshu, you know, the person who powers Moon Knight, if he can have a fist in the land, an avatar if you will, maybe so can he. So now as he uses his abilities to create a tapestry, Danny Rand's very soul is woven into it, and once complete, he will be back into the land of the living with all the abilities Osiris has given him, though it will slowly start to burn away, and once it does, he will be bound, forced to return back to the realm of the dead. So he goes on a little bit of a training arc, receiving a new mark and symbol on his chest instead of the dragon that a normal Iron Fist usually has, and then he gets all of his cool gear and new costume, which me, by the way, I think this costume is pretty sick, having a full cloak mask and then the armored arm on the side. Though if I'm being honest, this still doesn't hold a candle to the white and golden Iron Fist suit. Like, that thing is just super sleek, clean, and beautiful. But this one here is very unique and cool as well. So this new Ghost Fist not only has the abilities, the training, even the suit and gear, which means the biggest threat here isn't any one individual enemy, no, it is time itself. So as we see him literally being drowned by Fat Cobra here, Danny decides the best course of action is to, you know, skip his friend for now and just keep on his journey. He can't waste time trying to fight this very fat and big man when he has a real target to take care of, until he is blindsided again by another one of the immortal weapons of the mystical cities, this time it being the Bride of Nine Spiders, which each of them have a very unique set of abilities, much like Iron Fist, who have the Iron Fist and Chi. They all channel that in different ways, yet all of them being perverse and evil now due to the Wraithlings possessing them. But Danny does have a very specific advantage. They're all expecting, or the Wraithlings inside of them, to fight against Danny when he was the Iron Fist and those very specific set of abilities, yet here he is something very new and very different, full of surprises. And even eventually when all of the other immortal weapons all gang up in and about to start a 4-on-1 battle with this Ghost Fist here, Danny makes note of 2 things. One, it's time to stop holding back and let's take care of this once and for all so he can get back on his real mission. And secondly, you know, even while they are powerful and have all specific unique abilities, the things or entities possessing them, they are too inept to grasp onto the full prowess of the abilities and powers of the people they're possessing. Danny specifically said they're like kids in the driver's seat of a Lamborghini, so much power yet no real skill or focus on how to use it. So Danny goes on to do what he does best, to start, instead of just fully beating and overpowering them, just exercising them and turning them back to normal. And some of his abilities are kind of just very varied and out there, as one of them allows him to just create high-pitched sounds to distort his enemies, and one even just being a generic sidestep, where he's able to just use almost super speed, if you will, to get out of the position he was in. Though eventually the same spider girl from before, the Bride of Nine Spiders, eventually is able to entrap him within a system of webs, until he uses what seems to be his most powerful move, the Rays of Ra, and just overpowers everybody here. Though this move does come with a very big downside, with him using more of his abilities and turn his soul and just cutting his timer down even faster. But in the end, Osiris, who is in his head, maybe watching from above, we're not too sure yet, but he goes on to narrate saying that they really had little chance in this contest to begin with, and your kingdom is just up ahead, of course referring to Rand Corporation, his family's name, Rand, who Quinn Yaozu, who's taken over his company, stole his power, so Danny Rand has a lot of personal interest in taking him down, regardless of any Iron Fist business. And even as Quinn awaits at his former throne inside of Rand Corporation, we see once again Danny has stopped. While now, yes, none of these threats have really been a true threat to him, it's just the delaying in time part of it. That's his biggest hurdle here. And this interaction here might cost him a lot of time, as whoever is escorting this police squad to stop Danny here goes on to say, "Stop right there, vigilante. You think you can get away with tearing up my city to try to get to Quinn Yaozu? Well, not on my watch," as he then turns to the officer saying, "Your mayor says to arrest him." As we see, it's Luke Cage here physically in the flesh, who is not only a very personal connection to Danny, you know, maybe arguably his best friend, but he is also possessed by the same Wraithlings like everybody else, and a bigger, meaner looking nasty one at that, potentially meaning he not only might be very powerful and added with his already indestructible abilities, you know, this might be a very big time waster for Danny here. But this giant fight of brothers in arms is one we're going to see next time as this video and issue comes to a close. If you've enjoyed watching, leave a like or subscribe if you're new and want to see more content just like this. As always, this was AJ here at the Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.